Hello, John Talley here with Partzilla.com, and sitting on the table next to me is the engine out of our 2016 Yamaha YXZ1000R. Now, is there anything wrong with it? No, not really, but we're planning on doing a turbo build on this particular unit. So that 11.3 to 1 compression ratio is not going to work, along with the connector rods being, well, marginal at best. So we're going to pull this apart, check out everything, upgrade the connector rods, drop the compression ratio with those pistons, and then it'll be ready for that turbo application. So let's step over to the table and look at all the different parts that I've chosen for this particular build. Well, all right, guys, here you go. I've chosen to go with a low compression setup from Wiseco, forged pistons. Can't go wrong with a company like that. But we're also going to have to change out the connector rods. The ones that are in the 2016 model, they're just not up to the task. They're a little bit too thin through here, so we're going to update to the ones out of a 2019 through, I believe, 21. Now, added to that, you're going to need a top-end gasket set as well as this individual gasket that goes on the oil pan itself. Now, there's one part that you're going to need to get that I feel strongly, especially if you're going to do a turbo build, and that is a stud kit. And the one I've chosen to go with is from ARP. They're the leader in the business. That's just all there is to it. So go find a reliable supplier and order yours. Otherwise, I don't think a full turbo application is going to survive just having the stock studs in there. Now, granted, this is the beginning of the tip of the iceberg. There are other pieces that I don't know about yet, and I won't know which parts to order until I break it down. One of the most important, your connector rod bearings as well as the main bearings for the crankshaft itself. Those will be determined by markings on the crankshaft and the block, so to speak, and we won't know until we actually pull it apart. But this will get us started, and I'm sure I'll be adding parts along the way. But if you're doing your build, this is what you need to order that you will absolutely have to have, and other parts will be determined as we go through the build. So if you're ready, let's go dive into this. So let's get going. We're going to start off by just removing all the different venting and the intake, any of the wiring that's still attached to it, get that out of the way. Let's go ahead and get our throttle bodies off. Best way to attack that is to take them off by leaving the adapters in place and just pulling them out of the adapters. Now, you will expect a fair amount of resistance here because there's a lip that's more or less locking them in. There we go. There's that lip I was talking about. It takes a fair amount of muscle. Just be smooth about it so you don't damage anything. Next, let's get our cooling lines removed, and we'll take that off as an assembly as well. Now, when I go to do the build, I'm going to go ahead and replace all these lines because, let's face it, I mean, they're coming up on 7 years old, and we're going to be asking a lot out of this engine, so we want to make sure that everything else is going to be up to the task of the additional horsepower that this machine is going to produce. Now, when you're doing this, make sure that it's bottomed all the way into each one of these bolts, because if there's any dirt or anything, and you don't get it bottomed out all the way, then you run the risk of stripping it, and then you're going to be in for a battle. Because as you can see, I'm having to put a fair amount of torque on this to get them removed. Probably getting ready to bleed onto the table. Even though the oil has been drained out of it, I'm sure there's a few passageways that are still have some residual sitting in there. Just be ready for it. The most important tool that you can have when you're pulling an engine down, a mark saw, and Ziploc bags. Because it's all fun in the games when you're pulling it down, but in a couple of weeks when you're going to put it back together, are you going to remember exactly which bolts go where? I can't, so why would I do that to myself? Get out the bags, start writing it down, do it by section. That way it'll make it a whole lot easier to put back together. Now this part of it is actually an oil cooler. So you've got your coolant that is going through the head and of course coming back out, but it's also getting pumped through here, which is a heat exchanger, which helps cool the oil down as well. All right, let's get some of this electrical out of the way, and then we'll start working our way down. All right, let's go ahead and get our coils out. All right, let's go ahead and pull our inspection covers. So we'll go ahead and pull our valve cover. That way we can bring it around to top dead center. Now, is this really super necessary since we're pulling it all the way down? In my opinion, yes, because we're going to be removing the camshaft caps, and if they're in an awkward position, you potentially could crack one of the camshafts because these things are extremely hard, but that also makes them very brittle. And I don't want to start out my day by breaking a camshaft. I like what I see there. And I don't see any signs of burnt oil. The lobes that I'm looking at look to be in good shape. So far so good. Cautiously optimistic. Ooh, boy, that chain is loose. Yep, that should be it there. TDC mark here, and then you can see the marks here, here, and here. Wow. Ask me if I'm going to install a manual chain tensioner. The answer is yes. Wow. Next, let's get our tensioner removed. Can't wait to see what kind of shape this thing's in, because I don't like anything of what I just saw. That's scary. Yeah, I know we didn't have the engine running, and you've got hydraulic pressure from the oil that really keeps tension on this thing, but I'm just not going to trust it. We're going to go back with a manual one. I'd ordered a new one, but I think I'm going to get a manual one instead. That way, I'm sure. Yeah, ask me if I'm replacing the chain too. The answer would be yes. All right, let's get some caps off. A few turns at a time, so you can see the springs pushing up against it. And the difference in between your intake and your exhaust cams, you can see it right here. This is a much larger section than what's on the exhaust. There's one bolt goes right through here, and I'm not really sure what it does, other than you wouldn't be able to remove the head with it there. I don't have an answer for that. I mean, does this really need to be supported there? I don't know. And no, I don't care that the chain's about to fall down into the engine because I'm taking it apart anyway. All right, guys, we're getting ready to remove the head bolts, and we've already got the first two out of the way. And I've got the other ones numbered 3 through 10, and this is for disassembly, and we're going to go through that sequence at about a half a turn per bolt until it's released pressure on the head evenly. That's going to reduce the chances that we warp it. And yes, they will have a fair amount of torque on them. I think that's everybody. Let's go back around. All right, looking good. A little side note, we will not be using these same bolts or even new bolts of the same type, because we're going to go with ARP studs. really nice set, by the way. All right, let's see if she wants to lift off now. There we go. Now be careful as you do this, because if you tip it over, the shims are going to fall out. All right, looking good so far. I don't see any scoring. I can still see a little bit of the crosshatch. So I think we're going to be good to go with this one. All right, let's keep going. Let's go ahead and get off our end cover, which of course has the stator under it. And then we'll spin the engine around and start working on the output shaft, if you want to call it that. And at that point, we can turn the engine upside down, split the cases, start getting those pistons out, or the connector rods out. Well, it looks like they're all the same, except for just that one that was holding the pipe in. And the top two have washers on them. Those little arrows, those are the telltales if you're supposed to have a washer or not. I guess there's oil on the other side, hence why they're having to put a washer. There you go. But keep in mind, you got the magnet from the rotor trying to keep it in there, so don't let it pinch your fingers. There we go. All right. Started reduction gear. Let's go ahead and see about taking off our rotor. Let's see if that holder is going to be strong enough to do this. Not yet. I decided not to play nice anymore. Great for taking apart. Don't use this to assemble it, please. All right, guys, we're using a basic flywheel puller. Now, this one's a little bit different because the bolts have to be extra long to get in there. And of course, Yamaha makes a specific one, and we'd be glad to sell it to you, but it's kind of pricey. So I did a bit of a workaround with a unit that I already had. All right, and I don't know that these bolts are going to be strong enough to do this, but I guess we're about to find out, huh? Let's see if we can get it to pop loose. Hopefully we can put a fair amount of pressure on this and then shock it off of there. There you go. Amazing what a little tap of a hammer will do. I do want to warn you, whatever puller that you do use, make sure that you don't damage the end of the crankshaft. This one had an adapter to keep that from happening. All right, guys, we've got that side taken care of. Let's spin it around and address the output shaft, get it out of the way. Then we're going to turn it upside down and split the cases. Let's get these retaining bolts off. This little impact should be enough to deal with it. Yeah. We should be able to just remove that inner bolt. It's a 17 millimeter. Let's go ahead and see if we can get it to break it loose. Yeah, not that bad. Not bad at all. Loosen the flywheel bolts. You'd think this would come off as an assembly, but apparently not. They're calling this the flywheel. I think there's more to the story on the inside, so that's where that's going to stop for right now. We're going to go and remove the timing chain guides. Okay, let's turn it upside down and probably make a big mess. Not too bad. I forgot about the starter. Let's go ahead and get it off. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and remove all these 5mm head Allens to get the oil pan off. Now, there's no order for these, but when we go to separate the crankcase, there's a very specific order that the bolts have to be loosened half a turn at a time. We'll cover that in a second. Okay, let's see if we can get her to pry loose carefully. Okay, good. Whew, starting to worry me. It's like I'm opening up a crypt. There you go. A little sludgy, but I have seen worse. Not horrible. All right. Let's go ahead and start getting our oil pump out of the way. That should get it. This is the oil pump. This entire thing is your oil pump. And it's making a big old mess. All right, guys, before we break those mains, which are the most critical, we need to go ahead and get this end section off. Then we'll release the main, what I would call cap bolts, if I were building a V8. Guess we're going to see how this is put together now. Very odd arrangement. Let's see. Getting close. Right at that O-ring. You just have to be really patient doing this, guys. There we go. All right, now we got something. Almost looks like it's gotten wet or rusted in there. That's not a good thing. I think we're going to be replacing that bearing. Yeah. If you can hear that, it shouldn't sound like that. So yeah, I think we're going to have to do something about that. I don't know how water would have gotten in there, but my theory is that there's, of course, a seal further in here. And water must have gotten past it into that bearing and made it rust. Something new every day. Well, wouldn't you hate to be at the dealership? Well, we need to replace your output shaft seal. The engine's got to come out to do it, but yeah. That one seal that's on the inside of here is probably 10, 15 bucks, and it'd cost you $500 to get to it. It's always a little Easter egg when you're pulling apart an engine. Always. All right, guys, if you're like me, you're going to have to pause the tape, look at this drawing that we're showing you with all the numbers, and we're going to take them out 1/2 turn at a time, going from 24 down to 1. So you'll need a 10 and a 12. So let's go. With number 24 first. 23 way down here, 22, you get the idea. And actually, a 1/2 turn, these are going to be loose, so you're basically just breaking them loose. The ones that really count are these 8 down the middle. And these we need to replace. Especially that one. All right, guys, we've got the timing chain out of the way. Now, I think we're ready to split the crankcase open carefully. Let's see if she's ready to release. I don't want to pry on that very hard. There we go. Oh yeah, it's game over. Beautiful. All right, now we are using different connecting rods. So normally I would number them 1, 2, 3, but that really isn't going to matter. I mean, we can, just so we can keep up with them just for the heck of it, but it will not matter because we're going to have to size bearings and plastic gauge them and all that fun stuff to make sure that she's going to spin for a long time to come. Not too bad a wear. But that's the problem. These aren't strong enough. But we will want to save our connecting rod bolts, our old ones, because when we go to check the clearance for plastic gauge, we want to reuse these to do that because they're one-time use. Once we get it where we want it, then we'll use the new bolts that came with the connecting rods. So keep that in mind. A lot of cleaning going to have to happen. Okay, let's lift her out. Oh yeah, looking good. Not that it matters, but we're going to number them. Just in case I need to reference anything, I'll number these main shells. All right guys, with that crankshaft out of the way, we want to go ahead and take off our counterbalance, and it's just held in by this one bolt, but you need to bend this little tab back before we can remove it. And to keep it from rotating, we're just going to use a small piece of wood to go right here and then buzz it off. Piece of cake. And once we get that done, then we'll head over to the water pump side, get it removed, and that'll pretty much complete, breaking down the block. We'll leave that in for the time being. Let's go ahead and rotate it over. We can probably leave those 2 Phillips in place and remove the hexes, and then I bet you that will come off as a unit. Let's see. I kind of doubt it. I'm betting it needs to come off so I can get to the actual shaft that's going to be coming through it. I could be right. Yep. All right, guys, this is what we're after. Another tab, just like on the other end. All right, that piece of wood wasn't going to fit in there, so I just used a pair of pliers with a cushioned handle to keep it from damaging it. All this alignment will be really important when we go to put it back together. There we go. Yep, we're going to be looking at the exploded diagrams when it comes time to put this back together. There we go. That's a lot going on for just a counterbalancer. How many pieces was that, like 10? So we've got a couple of bearings to get out. To get that guy out of there, we're going to use a blind bearing puller, and we're using one that's part of a kit from Motion Pro. Really nice setup. I don't know another way to really do this except to use this particular tool. And we are going to this much extreme because I am going to end up sending this over to the machine shop. And I don't know about yours, but mine, they prefer to have everything completely removed from the block. That way, they're not responsible for all of your dowels that you think they lost and they thought you never brought in to begin with. So it just makes it simpler to bring it in completely clean. That way they can do the work that they need to do and get it back to you even quicker. So let's get this one pulled out. Cool little tool. All right, guys, if it's rubber, it doesn't need to go into an acid bath. It gets screwed, glued, and tattooed. Okay, tell you what, while I'm staring at it, let's get this cooling line removed. Because it's going to have an O-ring on the back side of it. I feel confident. Yep. Well, looks like we got one bearing left. And that should do it for the top half of the block anyway, / cylinder. I think we'll be using our blind bearing kit again. Right tools can make everything possible. So I usually don't pull my dowels on either end of a case, but I do on the bottom and on the top, and I think there's one more left on the top. Now, most of the time I replace the dowels when I'm going through, because invariably you'll end up damaging, but what if you can't get a replacement? I have a new tool, a dowel pin puller set. Motion Pro makes everything. Let's see if she's going to cooperate. That one, it was corroded in there. Now I'm still going to replace this one, but that would have been tough to get out any other way. Well, all right, guys, there you go. She's all broken down, but now the work's really going to get started. Now, if you want to see that unfold, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way, well, you can keep up with when I continue this project. Well, listen, if you need any parts for your machine in between now and then, why don't you come see us at Partzilla.com and we can get you taken care of. If you have any questions or comments about this video, leave them in the section below and I'll do my best to answer them. We just want to say thank you for shopping here with us at Partzilla, and we will see you in the next video. Y'all have a great day.